Okay, well, it's a great honor to be here, and as Jasper told me, well, I got a call. Would you be kind enough to talk at Creative Mornings? I said, well, wow, what's the subject? Genius. So I was, wow, somebody thinks that I am a genius. Maybe that's the reason they asked me, or is it, well, you can talk about things in a way, so maybe you can shine your light on the team genius. So I was thinking maybe it's a good story to tell everybody that Creative Chef is a genius. So that popped up in my mind. So from now on, this talk, I'll be a genius, okay? So that's why it's here. Creative Chef is a genius. And why I'm saying that, I'll get to that in the end of the talk. But first I'm going to show you some things. I'm going to introduce myself and tell you what I do, okay? Okay, what does a genius like me do? It's really simple. I am an artist who tries to bring together the worlds of food, art and product design to create stories that are able to touch you guys in the hearts. That's what I do, that's why I do my job, that's why I go with a whistle on my bike to my job every day, because that's who I am and that's what I like to do. And I like to create a starting point for your own little story. I find it a very important thing in the work I do. When you experience my experience that I design, it's never about the product or the food, but it's about how I can create a starting point for your own little story. Your own little story can be a joyous moment, or maybe you drive home and you thought about the moment you had the experience, but I created a story for you. And I was like a character in that story. But it's your story. That's an important thing, and it's in my work, and we'll show you. And then I'll go to the genius part, okay? So, I'm going to show you some work I did. This is a project I did. It's about connecting art with food. And this is a project I did. I call Taste the Dutch Masters. It started out as a restaurant experience, and we created three-dimensional boxes with food in it, and we copied famous 17th century paintings. And instead of just going inside a room and eat something, some cheese and stuff, and the normal thing you eat at a place where you are, they had a rondleiding. How do you say that in English? A tour around around all the paintings. And it was a really nice experience, because they could smell and see the 17th century original picture or painting. They could eat out of it, but they also, because I created it, new stories will evolve. So I can show you a picture of a cheese from the 17th century and then give you cheese. But if you actually take the cheese out of a 17th century picture with all the stories behind paintings, and a new dimension will evolve. That's one of the things I did, and I still do it, and it's really nice, and it has a lot of potential also in other artworks, and it's a new experience. You are part of an art piece. The next thing is, this is work I do a lot. Sometimes they look really good, sometimes they look less good, but that's not important, because it's never about the looks. What I'm going to tell you, this is a thing I did last year. I just created some food on little canvases as a big picture. Doing that was nice to see. People took a little canvas, eat from it, and while eating they paint around a little bit. And before they take the food, I say, well, you're going to be part of something big, a big art piece. And then in the end, I take them, put them together, make a picture with a technical camera, and now it's an art piece 2 by 3 meters, really big. So I used, my dining guests were part of my big dream, get food into a museum. That's what I'll get later on. So they are part of it. This is a project maybe I'm going to do it with Tinker, you never know. This is a project I have, it's like, how would it be to be inside an art piece? So this is my quick version of the style. I call it the Mondrian restaurant, and it has green, I know. It's not the primary color, but that's another thing. The thing is about this, you enter an art piece, it's filmed from above, and you see yourself sitting inside the art piece eating. It's a really simple concept, but that's how I think, what I like to do. It's not about the food, it's about being there in that moment, being part of something. And then we have this one. It's an example of how I view product design. This was when I was cooking a lot. I still cook a lot, but less. But when I was cooking a lot, I also always used modeling clay, to create my plates, to show my chefs in the kitchen how the food's supposed to look. Okay? In the end of the evening, I always noticed that all my chefs were playing around with it. So one time, I'm gonna make an object out of them. So I brought these to Suzanne Becking. Maybe you are familiar with her, she's from Utrecht. And I brought clay models, and I said to Suzanne, turn them into ceramics. And that's how my journey, what I'm doing now as a creative, started, because I showed these things at the Dutch Design Week, and it got picked up by Liedewij Edelkoort. I didn't heard about her because I was just a cook, you know. So who's that? Well, it turned out she had a little bit of influence. So so that was the starting point for my creative career I'm having now. And the thing about this is also the same thing. It's my design, it's my product, but in the end it will be your design, because you can play around with it. It's a really mindful product. You can create your own dishes or your own compositions. It's yours. So it's not my project and it stands on the table and that's it. But I invite you to join. Okay. And then, I have this one. This is also a thing. I like to add some jokes. This was about my work as a chef. Then I did a vegetarian dining experience, but I had about 8 or 10 people emailed me. I don't want to eat vegetarian food. I want to meat. It was a joke. So they didn't hear about me from it anymore. But in the end, they came to the evening, and especially for them, I made a camouflage carpaccio. Okay, so they become part of our own little story. So the only thing I do is I create little stories. Well, this is what I do in my Museum of Taste. It's a pop-up restaurant I do in the summers, and you can taste old collections of plants and botanicals which were grown between 1850 and 1950 in Holland. You can come to that place, and it's not called a restaurant and it's not called a garden, but it's called the Museum of Tastes. So that's how I frame it, so I can tell another story. So more people will come, also kids, and because to go to a museum is less of a barrier than to go to a botanical garden sometimes, you know. So, and that's the way how I use framing, product design, food to create experiences. Okay, and this is my last fun thing I would like to do. What would happen when you create, like, I'm a really chaotic guy in the kitchen, so I work like this and fast. What would my art look like? So when I'm doing graffiti works, I do it like this. So I call it wall platings. So I just make some objects and I plate them to the wall in like 2 minutes, and then I go. That's how a chef works. So my skills as a creative are embedded in the being of a chef. Okay? So that's who I am. So what has this to do with me being a genius? All this work, I'm gonna tell you. I'm going to tell you. Therefore, I have to tell you a little story. The story about the way I view at things. I view at taste and perception. I always tell one story. Some people who see me maybe heard it before, but it's a very intricate thing. It's a story about the peach. And the peach is something which we take for granted. You buy a peach, you take a bite of it, and you say, this is a good peach. But what happens when you eat a peach which is not ripe? You take a bite, and your mind says, this is not good. And you put it aside. And when you are a right-wing voter, you throw it away. And when you are a left-wing voter, you learn to put a basket around it or to ripen it, and you eat it one day later. Okay? So it's a really broad statement, but maybe it's correct. Well, the thing about this peach is, how can we change the story, the experience around this unripe peach to make it a good product? Well, I tell you, we're going to change the name around the peach. We're going to call it the tomato peach. And we're going to put it inside all the shops, not between the fruit, but between the tomatoes and the cucumbers, the vegetables division, okay? We call it tomato peach, and all chefs are going to cook with it with savory dishes. So they're going to serve peach with fish, they're going to serve unripe peach in salads, and we're going to ask influencers and bloggers to write about it, this new great product, which has a really, you can get old with it, it's really healthy, blah, 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 blah. Maybe it will, be a success in the shops. And the thing about this unripe peach is really interesting because an unripe peach is much cheaper to produce. Okay, and that's the thing I'm going to tell you, the core of this talk. Because you only need a quarter of the time to generate an unripe peach, your costs are low. So the ripe peach farmer is after a while, when we are having success, is thinking, wow, that Jasper guy, he's got loads of money, he sells, and he has only got a quarter of the time, he needs to grow them. And I'm the first one on the market, so I can sell them for more money. So after a while, when I'm chilling in the Bahamas, and I sold my unripe peach farm, I'm certain that a lot of ripe peach farmers are going to put a similar product on the market. And after a while, the ripe peach will be picked a week earlier. So then in Germany and Italy, people will start to complain about the crazy Dutch guys who eat sour peaches. Okay, so in the end, you will notice the money model behind the peach is also the big influence about how we connect to the peach. I will tell you, because after 10 years, we take a bite, and then we are conditioned, and we say, this one is good for the salad, and this one's good for the dessert. And then, when my money is gone at the Bahamas, because I partied or I invested in a crazy art project, I'm going back to Holland, I'm going to start a new business, the tomato, the really sweet peach, blah, 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 and I'm going to sell it for a lot of money. And it's going to be, only Michelin star chefs are going to cook with it. And then it's going to be a really high-end product again, and then etc., etc. So, behind experience and behind successes and how you see things, there is a economical drive. So I want to give you that insight. Okay. Now the next thing, I was thinking about being a genius. Well, the first thing which popped up in my mind, which I consider he's a genius, is this man. Who knows who this is? It's Vincent van Gogh. But I was thinking, was the guy living the genius life? Okay, a genius guy is like a successful, and he knows stuff, and he always blah. It's like that. But he was just he drank too much. He was unhappy, he was not seen, he created art, and I was thinking, wow, it's strange, but why nowadays we have like a Van Gogh museum? It's really big. So I was thinking, Maybe it has to do with the economical thing behind the man Vincent. Maybe there was this one guy or girl who started to talk about Vincent or bought his art, and it became an important thing to tell people that he was a genius and he was successful, because it drives up the price of a painting. Maybe, it's... So, I was thinking, maybe the peach story is also something that is really, you can say to Vincent. Maybe when nobody started to talk about him being a genius or by his art, we would never know about this guy. And we would never say he's a genius. Maybe there's a big we can relate to Vincent. We can say, okay, Vincent, he's my inspirer. So he became like a thing which you can use to identify yourself with. So he became something bigger. But he became that because people started talking about him, and maybe they could earn money from it. When you are an art historian, it's better to write about, nowadays, it's better to write about Vincent van Gogh than maybe about Creative Chef at this moment. So, that's what I was trying to show you guys, that genius, being a genius is something that maybe is also a smart thing to tell to people. Say what you are, say what you want to achieve, and maybe the word genius is a good thing to use. So that's why I started out this talk with Creative Chef is a genius. So Creative Chef is a genius. Now, I'm going to take you to the next step. So, this is what I was talking about. Why is Vincent considered a genius? Because his story was told by the right and influential people. Vincent became a good prophet. And nowadays, Vincent is a good starting point for your own little story. So that's the essence of what I also do in my designs. Creating a starting point. Well, the prophet thing, I always give my money to new products. So, and this is a really important one, because his story was told by the right and influential people. Okay, now I'm going to take you to the next step. And that's why I'm here and what I'm doing with my job and what's my dream. And that has to do with this little sentence. Okay, this is me. I started out 3 years ago now, September the 1st, so 3 years ago. And I have a dream, and it's this one. I use the word genius to reach a goal, and I have a dream. This was my first art piece from 2013, and that triggered my mind, okay, this is what I am, this is what I like to do. And it's not a coincidence, it's inspired by Broadway, or the thing in New York. I have this dream, I want to get my food into the museum. So, if you want to be considered a genius, to reach a goal, you have to talk to a lot of people. And you have to tell a lot of people that you are a genius and you want to reach that goal. So, I started out my company. I turned my name from chef into Creative Chef. I wrote a book so that you become an authority. So you can tell the story. But I published it not as a cookbook, but I published it at Beast Publishers, who is inside the design world. Well, and that all fits into my dream, getting my food into the museum. Because when I start to tell everybody in the food business that I want to reach that goal, they say, yeah, good luck. And maybe they hire you as a creative consultant for some product stuff, but it's not gonna happen then. So you have to talk to the right and influential people and tell everybody you are a genius, or you have to make them think that you are a genius. So that's the first step I took. I made the book, then I started creating product stuff, showed them at fairs, and everything I did had to do with my dream. I opened a pop-up restaurant I talked earlier about, called the Museum of Taste. It's a museum of taste. It's not a restaurant, no. I'm stepping out of the frame of a cook and I'm stepping into the frame of a creative genius who wants to get his food into the museum. Well, all those things all together is creating a big story. And that big story is what I'm doing now at this moment. I'm telling stories to people to reach that goal, and it started happening. So that's the thing I want to give you today, to also in your own work, tell the story you do. I think 50% of what you do is your job, the actual thing you do, and 50% is creating characters, talking to people, tell your own story, what you want to reach. And then it may happen, because this year, like 2.5 years ago, I said I want to reach the MoMA New York. Well, this April I was in New York showing my work. I met the right people, I shook hands. I'm going back to the States in a few months to talk about a big show. So when you tell your story, you are going to get heard. People hear from you. And it's really, I'm not saying it like just some sort of thing, but it's like you have to talk and say it every time you speak to somebody. So when you say 20 times a day, I'm a genius and I want to get my food into the museum, it's going to happen. I'm confident about it. What I did in New York was I took a simple food concept, showed it to people, but every people who were at my desk, I said, hi, my name is Jasper and I have a dream. I want to get my food into the MoMA New York. My first line. I did that for 1,000 New Yorkers and it's going to happen. So, in the end, it's really important to tell a story that helps you to get to your goal. And when I was asked by Jasper would you like to tell something about geniusness? I think geniusness is something, it's a perception of somebody about someone. And it's not, it's a word. But I thought genius is a word for my dream, the word you can use to reach a goal. Okay, so that's, I think, the thing I wanted to tell you. So everybody that there is a guy, so tell everybody that there is a genius guy who calls himself creative chef and become part of his dream, to get my food into the MoMA New York. So I hope a lot of people will hear this and maybe it connects. And that's I think is my story about geniusness. And